Orange County, Florida is grappling with various social issues, including homelessness, poverty, domestic violence, and inequality. While some may not feel directly affected, the interconnected causes and impacts of these issues have a negative effect on the entire community. In this episode, we will explore the efforts of our community leaders in addressing these challenges. I'm Jessica Thomas, a family law attorney, and your host of The Domino Effect, where we explore how social and legal issues intersect. Remember, we can all positively impact our community and continue to make Central Florida one of the most desirable destinations in this country. This is The Domino Effect. She is one of only 10 board-certified Social Security disability attorneys in Florida, the chairperson of the Social Security Committee of the Orange County Bar Association, and an overall incredible attorney. I am so excited to introduce our first guest, Ms. Sarah Jacobs, my fellow alum. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Jessica. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Oh, I am so excited for you to tell us of all things Social Security. First, how did you get there and why?
So actually, I saw the disability process as a teenager. My mother was actually diagnosed with a terminal condition when I was in my late teens, and I watched her apply for disability. And even though she had a terminal diagnosis, it took years, and it took her congressman getting involved in order for her disability benefits to get approved. And then she passed away 2 months later.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. So I think I've had a personal vendetta against the Social Security Administration since an early age. And then when I went to law school, I knew I wanted to do something to help disabled people, but I really wasn't sure where to go or what to do. And actually, at Barry Law School, there was a job posting from Richard Culbertson. He was looking for a federal court brief writer. And I was on law review, so I loved to write. And I thought, wow, this would be perfect for me. So I started working for him directly out of law school. So I've been with him since 2011. I became partner at the firm in 2018. And then our third partner is actually a retired Social Security administrative law judge, Barry Laboda. So we have a great team of partners at the firm. So I've been there 13 years. I have helped thousands of people apply for their disability benefits. Our firm has 3 different locations. We're in Orlando, Leesburg, and Daytona Beach. So we can assist people all over the state of Florida.
Let me ask you, because some of our viewers may not be aware of what we mean when we say Social Security disability, right? So some of us think 65, Social Security, right? And some people think disability, well, maybe I need to, it's different. They don't really have a good grasp on what that means. What is it that you actually help people do when you say Social Security disability attorney?
So there are 2 programs administered by the Social Security Administration for disabled people. The first is Social Security Disability Insurance. This is when you're working and you're paying your FICA taxes, you earn work credits. So typically most people need to have 40 quarters of coverage in order to apply for Social Security disability. If you're under a certain age, the work credits, it's a lower limit. But then there's also supplemental security income. It's a completely separate program, but that is for people who have never even worked a day in their life or they don't have the work credits. That is more of the income and needs-based program. So the medical standard for the 2 programs is the same. You have to show that you meet all of the medical requirements for disability. But for the SSI, you also have to show that you are under a certain income threshold. So for an individual right now, that limit is $2,000. So you cannot have $2,001 in the bank, otherwise you are deemed ineligible for benefits.
Money that they have in the bank or money they make each month?
Money they have in the bank. So SSI, you can have some what they consider non-exempt assets. So you can have a home, you have to actually reside in the home. You can have one car, and it doesn't matter how much the car is worth, but only the one car. And then you have the families where dad might be working, mom isn't because she's disabled, but because of dad's income coming in, she's not going to be eligible for any type of benefits. So it's a very hard process to go through.
And convoluted, it sounds like.
100%.
So this information that you know, like the back of your hand, obviously after over a decade of doing this, where is that kind of information for our viewers to be able to look and see where they qualify? Is that kind of stuff on your website? Is it on the federal website?
So you can go to ssa.gov, and they do, list out, they have pamphlets on what you need to gather before you apply, what the standards are. It's a little deceiving because they'll have a diagnosis of, if you have bipolar, you may, be eligible. But that's not necessarily the case. Just because you have a medical diagnosis does not mean that Social Security is going to find you meet those requirements. It's a 5-step process that Social Security goes through, and our firm's website does have videos and links to help simplify the process. And we work on a contingency fee basis, so any attorney that does Social Security cases can't charge for consultations, so everything we do is free up front. So we'll explain to people who call in, we'll have people call in and say, I'm pregnant, I can't work. But the first thing is, are you expected to be out of work for 12 months, or is your condition expected to result in death? So some people just don't understand, that the stringent standards. So some of those we just talk to and explain, look, that's not a condition that would qualify under Social Security disability.
How long on average, and I know that it can be all over the place, but from an application to money in hand, on average, what has been your experience from application to money in hand for the timeline?
So pre-pandemic, I would say 2.5 years.
Oh my goodness.
That was pre-pandemic. Social Security, once the pandemic hit, they closed their doors March 17th of 2020. They did not reopen their field offices until April of 22, when the rest of the world had already been back and everything was in full swing. So that has created a massive backlog of applications. Mail wasn't being processed. So right now, if a person files their disability application, it takes 12 months for Social Security to assign that case to a caseworker. Once that is assigned to a caseworker, then it takes about 6 to 8 months for them to actually gather the medical records and make a determination. So that initial level right now is taking about 18 months. But then most claims are denied at that initial level. So then they have to request a reconsideration. It goes back to the same state agency that just made a determination that they weren't disabled. That process right now is taking about 10 months. So right now you're at about 28 months. Then you have to request a hearing in front of an administrative law judge. Nationwide, statistically, about 50% of the cases that go in front of a judge are approved. When I started practicing, the average was about 67% approval. So over the years, we've just seen it gone down. And then if you're denied at the hearing level, then you can request a review by the Appeals Council in Falls Church, Virginia, which every single case in the nation goes to this one facility. They'll take about 6 to 8 months to issue a 4-page standard boilerplate denial letter, and then I will review the case to see if we can appeal it to federal court. So at that point, it goes out of Social Security's hands, but then that results in ping pong, a game of ping pong, because the federal court doesn't decide whether or not the individual is disabled. They just say, did Social Security follow the rules and regulations? And if they determine that they didn't, they send it back for a new hearing. So I have had cases, the longest one took about 16 years for my client to get approved for benefits. And that was with the federal court just outright reversing Social Security's decision, which they rarely do. But because the facts were so egregious, it was one of the cases that they did so.
That is, I feel like no other word than disturbing. The
Yes.
fact that it can take that long when these are people who are obviously in need help, and the money is what they need, rent, groceries, gas, unable to do that. Now, obviously for legal aid, the goal is to help those most in need. It's my understanding that you have pioneered a clinic for just that. Is that correct?
Correct. Social Security instituted a policy during the pandemic that they weren't collecting overpayments that they were assessing against individuals. So for about a year, they stopped going after people for overpayments. However, once they said we are resuming collecting, over 2.5 million notices went out in one fiscal year to claimants saying, send us $30,000 in 30 days, otherwise we are cutting off your benefits completely.
Excuse me, Sarah, I want to make sure that I understood. Did you say $30,000? US dollars?
I have seen overpayments assessed as high as $140,000. And it's usually due to Social Security's mistake, not the client's fault.
And I want to make sure I understand the word overpayment. I'm just making sure I'm not missing anything. Maybe I'm supposed to get $1,000, and instead I got $5,000. And I got that over and over and over again to the tune of maybe $30,000. I didn't take the money from someone's account. It was sent to me, correct?
Correct.
Is there some kind of accounting sheet where I could have noticed an accounting error in this mailer with my check?
No. And that's the problem, is the lack of communication from the agency, where these people don't realize that they're being overpaid. So if you're receiving Social Security disability insurance and you have minor children, if your payment is high enough, your children are also eligible to receive payments. However, if the parent was overpaid, that means the child was overpaid as well. And that overpayment will follow them even once they turn age 18, even though it was not their fault. So that's why some of the numbers are so large. Like I said, we've seen up to $140,000 being assessed.
How do they get to the clinic? How do people who are watching this right now, who have Googled Social Security issues, gotten this video, how do they get to the clinic? How do they come to you and say, I just got this letter that says I owe $30,000, or I got an appeal, or I got this, I need help? How do they get to you?
So they just need to contact the Orange County Bar Association directly. The clinics we have been setting up, we were doing a monthly basis. Most of the overpayment issues, we have a new commissioner of Social Security finally. For a long time, there was not a permanent person in that position. So the new commissioner realized, what was going on with the overpayments. So he did institute new policies in the beginning of the year that they will no longer recoup your entire check while the appeal is pending. So the most Social Security is supposed to be withholding from a person's check is 10% of their benefits. But still, if you have an individual receiving $1,000 a month, they're taking $100 away, and they're supposed to pay rent, their food stamps go down, electric. I don't know how people survive off of this. So I strongly encourage anyone facing these issues, not only the overpayment issue, we've also opened it up to cessation cases. So those are cases in which a beneficiary is receiving their Social Security benefits, and then Social Security will send them a notice and say, we don't think you're disabled anymore. So that's when the review process starts. Again. So it depends on the age of the person. Most reviews are conducted every 3 years. The older you get, sometimes it goes to 7 years, but they do review cases. It's just their system is so old and archaic that a lot of technological updates, I think, would help. And Congress just hasn't done the funding for it.
Wow. If there was anything that you could say kind of as a step being taken on a national level, kind of like a last thought, that you've seen or that you'd like to see be taken to help these issues that we've discussed today, what would that be?
I have great hope with our new Commissioner O'Malley. He has been the first, he's not an acting commissioner, so he's actually been appointed to the position. He has listened to all kinds of issues, and he has been so quick to act on some of these the overpayment, cutting it back to the 10% withholding. He did that within like 2 months of taking the position. So he's very open to listening to the national Social Security organizations to see, what's coming from the representatives' perspective, because for a long time it seemed like the administration didn't care to hear, what was actually happening. They're underfunded, understaffed, which we understand, but we have people dying in Central Florida because they can't get their disability benefits, they can't get the medical insurance that goes along with it. So I also encourage people to contact their local congressperson, because every congressperson has someone on staff that will help with issues with the VA, Social Security, IRS. So get the congressperson involved, because Congress is the only one who can make changes to the administration. And the more people that reach out about the issues they're experiencing, the more pressure that Congress will face.
Oh my goodness. Well, you have given us a lot to digest today. Thank you for choosing that area, for doing what you're doing, for starting this clinic. We really appreciate your hard work, and I know that the community benefits from it. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Jessica.
Absolutely. Facing problems with Social Security can be frightening. So I want to thank Sarah again for providing us with as much detail and information as possible. We want people to know that help is available. After this, we'll be back with more of the Domino Effect.
A disproportionate number of Floridians don't have access to the justice system. That's why Funding Florida Legal Aid exists to bridge this gap. Their mission is to increase access for the underprivileged by funding legal services, developing innovative tools and programs, supporting legal aid providers and the courts. Because of their efforts, they've been able to help veterans facing homelessness, children in the foster care system, men and women who've survived domestic violence, and securing benefits for our elderly and disabled. Doing good for the greatest in need, because everyone deserves access to justice.
Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us. Earlier, we discovered how one error can lead to a series of life-changing events for thousands. Joining us now is someone who can provide us with more insight as to what these changes look like on a larger scale. It is my pleasure to introduce the State Attorney for the Ninth Judicial Circuit, the Honorable Andrew Bain. Thank you so much for coming to our discussion. How are you today?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for the invitation. I want to just, super excited to talk to the people out here in Orange County about all the great work that we're doing here at the office.
Wonderful. Now, this is going to seem like a silly question, but I always start from the very basics for our viewers. Okay. What is a state attorney?
So a state attorney is not an attorney for the entire state. So let's start with that. So a lot of people think that I work in Tallahassee, but the reality is that every circuit in the state of Florida has their own state attorney. So there are 20 circuits in the state of Florida, so there are 20 state attorneys. And I happen to be the state attorney for the Ninth Judicial Circuit, which covers 2 counties, Orange and Osceola County. And so I am here in your community, either downtown Orange County or in the courthouse in Osceola County. So that I'm in everywhere else in all thousands of miles that we cover.
Now, to be clear, you are an attorney.
I am an attorney.
And in fact, you used to be a judge. Is that correct?
Yes, so I spent 3 years on the bench in Orange County as an Orange County judge. I served in the criminal division, what we call a specialized division, which would be the first appearance judges when you get arrested at the jail. You have to see a judge within 24 hours of your arrest. And also spent time in the civil division. So I covered all the county court type things that we do. And so it was a great learning experience after being an assistant state attorney first for about 7 years.
Now, why did you want to get into public service? Why a state attorney?
This is something, I don't think I really intended to be a state attorney. There was a lot of things, what I call it, what happens in my life is that God puts some people in my life to say, hey, there's an opportunity here for you to serve. And so that's the only thing I really ever wanted to do in my entire life is to serve. Was to serve my community, serve my faith community, serve anybody that I could to help them. And so it became an opportunity that a friend called me and said, hey, I think you'd be really good at this job. Come interview. I got hired by Ninth Judicial Verdict, and I was on my way after finishing at FAM.
Now tell me, yay for FAM, tell me a little bit about what a state attorney does. Are you in the courtroom? Are you prosecuting cases? What do you do?
I wish I was more in the courtroom. So as an assistant state attorney, the people that work for me, the attorneys that go to the courtrooms and do all the cases and try them, they do all the hard work. They are there fighting for our community, fighting for our victims, fighting to keep our community safe. You can see my role as a manager of a large firm. So I have 162 attorneys that work for me.
Wow.
And we have 2 offices, and also have another almost 240 staff that also works for me, including investigators, which are law enforcement officers, and HR and IT and all those kind of things like that. And it's my job to manage all of those people and everything that happens inside the office, including around almost $40 million that the taxpayers entrust us with to make sure that we're going to be able to do our job. And also, in addition to that, is be forward-facing for the office, which means talking to the media, meeting with the commissioners and senators and representatives, and the faith-based communities, and meeting with nonprofit communities, and making sure that I provide every resource I can to the people in the courtrooms doing the job, making sure that we can produce the greatest product we can for the people.
Now, you mentioned resources. It's my understanding that there's some resources that you've been able to create right there through the state attorney's office. Is that correct?
Yes. So we've been able to create a lot of great resources. Just inside the office, we've been able to partner with a lot of nonprofits and a lot of community leaders doing some amazing work in our community. Our community is amazing. We address so many issues with so many people, but sometimes the issue is that we don't have a place to collaborate and bring those things together. So there's a lot of silo work that sometimes happens when people are doing a lot of great work. So I've been able to, create my own silo inside of the state attorney's office, in the idea that we're trying to bring in as many people as possible. So we've been able to work with, for instance, Victim Services of Central Florida, and we have now on-site crisis care intervention specialists for our victims 3 days a week. Including the 24-hour hotline that they already have in place for victims of crime. We've been able to partner with University of Central Florida on several initiatives, but the most one that we have the results for right now is our Turning Pages juvenile literacy program, because literacy is one of the driving factors and underlying problems that we talked about early in the criminal justice system. So we're able to try to break that kind of school to prison pipeline. We're trying to work on doing that and providing the tools for that child to be successful in school, graduate high school, and to no longer be in our criminal justice system. We partner with Career Source of Central Florida in helping to provide soft skill training and job training for people inside of our diversion programs, and hopefully soon inside of our probationary sentences. So it's all those type of things like that. All people from all types of organizations, or many more, but those are just a few examples of what we've been doing.
Well, those are some huge examples, State Attorney, very huge examples. Talk to me a little bit about, for our viewers who are watching this and say, I have a nonprofit that's dedicated to helping children too. I want to help. Where do they go? How do they get to you?
Well, you can.
There is an entourage to get through. I know this now. How do they get to you?
Really, I'm pretty accessible. You can reach out to me directly.
Yeah.
You can call. You can call me 407-836-2424. Or you can reach out to, when you do call the office, you can reach out to Deron Williams. He's my community relations coordinator. And so we are kind of, that's how we plug in people to what we're doing here at the office, and try to make it easier for them. Because for me, I see what I do as a community issue anyways. So you'll hear me say a lot that criminal justice is a community issue. So I need the community's help in solving a lot of these underlying issues that we talked about. So like we went to visit Second Harvest a few weeks ago. Hey, food insecurity is a problem. Poverty is a problem that drives people into crime. So how can we, as an office from where we sit, help people not recidivize, keep them out of our system. And so that's what we really try to focus in on that front. Obviously, we need to focus on keeping violent people from harming our community, keeping dangerous people off our streets, human traffickers out of our community. But we also had to find a space where we're providing real resources, real possibilities for change for people.
Now, when you talk about that in some of those programs, we've talked about victims, we've talked about providing services for literacy. Aren't there some transformational diversion programs that you have that are helping those people who've maybe lost their way?
Correct.
What are those?
So that's what we talked about when we talked about Career Source. We talked about Operation New Hope. We talk about recovery connections for people that are struggling with addiction. We talked about building those type of partnerships in our diversion programs. So these are all partners inside of the program itself. And so we've introduced what we call early resolution diversion, which is a 90-day diversion. There's 17 variations of that. They cover all types of things that are going on, from from low-level possession type cases to thefts, to domestic violence, and some other batteries and things like that. And we also have what we call pretrial intervention, which deals with some more like higher level type of crimes, which would be like DUIs and more serious domestic violence cases, and things that we can have to take a little bit longer time to deal with. But inside of those same programs, we still provide a lot of things that people need. Again, talk about food insecurity, talk about poverty, we talk about financial literacy. We talk about all those kind of different tools that people may not have, and that's the reason why they find themselves but they feel maybe in a disadvantaged situation that's now driven them to a position where they feel like they have to commit crime. But criminalization, we want to make sure that we are providing those proper resources.
Wow. It sounds like you really have all the bases covered, from the victims to those people who've maybe lost their way, to the community. Incredible. Tell me a little bit, about when we talk about this community, how large is Orange County? I know that sounds like a silly question, but again, I know our viewership. You are, you mentioned maybe 200-300 people there fighting for safety and keeping our community good and healthy. How many are out there that you're trying to keep safe?
All of them.
Are there millions?
It's millions. So I think every time I hear the Mayor Jerry Demings talk about it, I think the number is around 1.5, 1.7 million people in Orange County. We have another nearly million plus people here and now growing in Osceola County. So I cover both of those counties.
Wow.
And so there's a lot of people. And then not including the tourists. I think there's some crazy numbers in the amount of tourists that come here for conventions, to the parks, to all the things that happen here locally. So it's about providing a wide net to make sure that happens. But that only can happen with great partnerships. So that happens with great partnerships with my law enforcement partners, with the Orange County Sheriff's Office, whether it's Orlando Police Department, Winter Garden Police Department, and then also includes our federal partners as well. So it includes the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security and the U.S. Attorney's Office. And it's about all of us working together for the same goal of building a safer community for the people that live here in Orange County, in Osceola.
What if we've said a lot in a very short amount of time? What if people want to know more? Where can they go to find this information? I get a newsletter. So I get the newsletter. So how can people sign up for that newsletter? How can they get to your social media? How can they learn about what's going on at our state attorney's office?
Yeah, I think on social media, just look up State Attorney Andrew Bain of Orange and Osceola County. And then you can find our social media when it relates to that. You can sign up for the newsletter. So if you read the newsletter has a lot more of what we do, including bridging the gap between law enforcement and the community. We do a lot surrounding that topic as well, and just a whole host of other things that we try to do, including our back to school drive that we did this past on the 12th. And so, no, not the 12th, sorry, the 12th, that weekend before. And we had an amazing time. We partnered, again, partnerships are the key, with Safe Tax, with Second Harvest Food Bank, with Grow Together, which is an amazing organization that provides recreational equipment to children that may not have a place to play. And so I think that a lot of people will think that our community is amazing. It is an amazing community, but we have some people that are truly underserved, and they have truly underserved abilities to live that normal life. Like, they don't have a park that's down the street for them to go play. So they may live transitionally in a car or in a motel room or things like that, and providing just that recreational piece of equipment for that child, a basketball or some other ball for them to go outside and play with, is something that's very important for the development of that child, and also reduces the likelihood of trauma to that child. So it's all those kind of things like that we play a part of, because again, this is a community issue. Criminal justice and everything I do at the office is a community problem. It affects everything that happens in our community and all the people that are in it. So we want to make sure that we're doing that and providing the greatest tools we can to make sure that happens.
Now, these millions of people, you want to give that direct number one more time? Are you sure? Because there's millions of us that may call.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, we'll deal with it. We'll deal with it. We are here to serve. We are here to help. That is the biggest thing. Everything else is, on the sidelines. How can we help you in the sense of dealing with you as a victim, dealing with your criminal case, providing a space that we can do prevention and intervention and deterrence of crime. And so if you're on that mission with us and you want to be on that mission with us, I'm excited and happy to try to find a way to partner with you and to make sure that happens.
Do you all accept individual volunteers as well? I know that sometimes questions that we get, could someone just say, hey, I may not have my own nonprofit, but maybe I was a victim of this particular crime and I'm happy to be that advocate just in court, just holding that person's hand. Can volunteers just come? Yeah,
we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. If you want to help, we'll try to find a space. I can't guarantee everything in the world, but we will try to find a space for you to help, because we all need it. I'm not ashamed to ask for help. That's all. My favorite thing is, hey, can you help me?
Yeah.
Can you help me? Can you help us achieve this goal? Can you help us help these kids? And that's been one of the biggest things and one of the funnest things I've done.
I love it. I do always say the squeaky oil gets the grease. So you do have to speak up for it. And I'm glad today that we did. Thank you for everything that you're doing in our community. Thank you for choosing public service. That's a very laudable goal that we all appreciate that you've taken on.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate State Attorney Bain taking the time to inform our community about our challenges and the resources available to help address those challenges. To our viewers, I appreciate you as well, and hope you'll join us again. I'm your host, Jessica Thomas, and this is The Domino Effect.
A disproportionate number of Floridians don't have access to the justice system. That's why funding Florida legal aid exists to bridge this gap. Their mission is to increase access for the underprivileged by funding legal services, developing innovative tools and programs, supporting legal aid providers and the courts. Because of their efforts, they've been able to help veterans facing homelessness, children in the foster care system, men and women who've survived domestic violence, and securing benefits for our elderly and disabled. Doing good for the greatest in need, because everyone deserves access to justice.
The Legal Aid Society has existed for over 60 years, providing legal representation to clients on issues similar to those discussed in this episode. We need our community to know that when faced with legal troubles, you are and should still be able to receive high-quality legal representation and access to justice, regardless of your income. If you are seeking assistance on a legal matter, you may contact the Legal Aid Society Law Firm by calling 407-841-8310. The Legal Aid Society is a nonprofit law firm that relies greatly on volunteerism and donations. For more information on how you can support this worthy organization, visit legalaidocba.org today. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Domino Effect. And remember, perpetual goodness goes a long way. Until next time.